As people in California struggle with the aftermath of those horrific wildfires, the rest of us stand to learn some valuable lessons about our own home fire insurance coverage. With a typical fire claim costing as much as $40,000, it's something that all of us need to be fully informed on. Here with what you need to know is Fox 29 lifestyle expert Shari. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
You know, you do bring to light an important topic about fire insurance and what it covers, or perhaps more importantly, what it doesn't cover.
Exactly.
And the questions you need to ask your insurance agent.
Sure. So generally, our homeowner's policy will cover us for fire, but also for the smoke and water, which actually can do just as much or more damage. And there's three categories of items that we want to make sure are covered. The first is the structure. So generally our insurance will cover us for the structure and attached structure, so an attached garage. Where they draw the line, though, is for detached structured, Roxanne. So maybe a shed or a fence or a detached garage. And the limitation for those, if you do have coverage, is generally about 10% of the policy amount. The second bucket, of course, is your contents, which covers your furniture, appliances, your clothing, those kinds of things. Typically, the coverage is limited at about 50 to 75% of the policy amount. But here's the thing. There may be limitations on certain types of items, so furs, artwork, jewelry may only be covered for about $1,000 you want to ask. And then the third bucket is what we call additional living expenses. Typically you're going to be covered for restaurants and hotels and things like that, but the line is drawn, and what's not covered is if your home is not uninhabitable, which is up to the insurance company to decide. And we're seeing a lot of folks in California, for example, who were evacuated, but their home's not uninhabitable, so they're not covered.
Oh, that's really tough. So
Yeah.
You've got some important questions. It's a checklist you have to have when you talk to your agent to ask those questions. So let's go through a quick list.
Sure. So, well, in addition to the limitations and the caps that we just talked about and deductibles, the biggie is whether you're covered for the actual current value of items or the replacement cost. So, for example, if you have a fire and you're only going to get paid for what your sofa, your living room sofa, is actually worth right now, that's not going to cover the cost of a new sofa. The thing that a lot of folks forget is that you've got increases in costs. People may have had an addition or renovated a kitchen. Construction costs have gone up. Code enforcement rules have gotten tighter, so inflation. So it's a lot more expensive to actually rebuild these types of things. You can get what's called extended replacement coverage that'll go 20% over your policy amount, or guaranteed replacement coverage that will replace your items no matter what your policy cap is. The other biggie is if your home was a primary residence and now maybe you're not there all the time, maybe you have a second home or a vacation home, if your home is not occupied for 30 consecutive days or more, your homeowner's insurance might not cover you. So another thing you want to ask.
Wait, check on all of that. That's really important, because those dollars add up quickly, don't they, if you've got a loss?
You know, and the thing is, these folks in California are learning, they don't ask, you don't know what your coverage is until there's an event that you have to be covered for, and you're in big trouble.
You got to review that, don't you? Okay.
Yeah.
So how can you keep some of these costs down?
So the number one way to avoid fire claim costs is to not have a fire. Typical causes for fires are cooking, heating, electrical. Not the most common types of claims, but one of the most expensive claims, so you can avoid that. Check for discounts for early warning systems, fire alarms, smoke detectors. Check for discounts for bundling your insurance. And the number one thing, Rox, is to shop around. People ask about premiums. They don't ask about all these details we've just covered. And to be truthful, you probably, or I probably, spend more time shopping for a wedding dress to wear to a wedding than we do for our fire insurance.
I hope those days are over for me.
Well, as a guest.
As a guest, I like it. But you're right. These are good questions. I mean, these are good points to make, because a lot of questions we have to ask to save money.
Well, and the thing is that the insurance companies have restricted the coverage, made a lot of changes, and we just assume if our premium is the same or pretty close, we're getting the same coverage as we've always had. You may not be.
All right, we got to let it go there. Thanks for the info. Let's send things to Felicia.
Thanks a lot, Rox. Let's talk about tropical storms.